They sent 500 warships after one human and created a galactic legend. Yet it was a place full of life and energy. Machines rumbled, drills scraped through rock, and humans moved with determination, oblivious to the eyes watching them from afar. Eli Varon adjusted his helmet and wiped sweat from his brow. He was not a soldier, not a hero, not a pilot. He was an engineer, and he liked it that way. Machines listened to him, machines obeyed him. People, that was more complicated. Today, Eli had been called to repair one of the colony's core reactors. It was routine work, or so he thought. The core hummed with energy, a quiet pulse that could power half a city if needed. As Eli inspected the controls, his scanner detected a strange reading. "It's off," he muttered. "That can't be right." Eli tapped at the console, frowning. The energy reading fluctuated rapidly. Then it spiked. Bright sparks danced across the panel and alarms blared. Eli's heart raced, but his hands moved fast. He had seen worse in the repair manuals and survival guides. A soft whirring behind him made him turn. A strange device hovered near the reactor, small but clearly not human. Its surface shimmered like liquid metal, and it emitted low, pulsing light. Eli instinctively ducked and grabbed his wrench. What are you?" he asked. The device made a sound, almost like laughter, and projected a hologram of a strange alien symbol. Eli didn't recognize it, but he understood one thing: this was bad news. Someone or something had tampered with the reactor. He backed away, thinking quickly. There was only one choice. If the core went critical, it could explode and destroy the colony. That meant Eli had to act. He ran to the auxiliary control panel, pulling levers and pressing buttons with hands that moved faster than his mind could think. Sparks flew. Sirens wailed. The ground shook. Minutes or maybe seconds later, the core stabilized. Eli let out a long breath, muscles trembling. He had saved the colony, yes, but something nagged at him. That device was still out there. It wasn't just a machine, it was intelligence observing him, learning. Far above Orvax 9, a sleek black ship drifted in orbit. Inside, a council of the Xiforans convened. They were tall, angular, and precise, their eyes reflecting cold calculation. One spoke, voice like grinding metal. "The human interfered with our operation," it said. "Eliminate him," another nodded. "One human, that is unnecessary." "Underestimate him at your own risk," said the first. "Send 500 warships. This one human will not escape us again." Back on the planet, Eli returned to his quarters, unaware that the galaxy had already turned its attention to him. He ate a simple meal, fixed some minor tools, and thought about calling it a day. Humans were not used to attention. Fame was foreign. Danger was even more foreign. The next morning, strange ships appeared in orbit. Small at first, almost invisible against the stars. Then more arrived. Eli's comms officer, a young woman named Lyra, shouted over the alarm. "Eli, you need to see this." Eli raced to the observation deck. Outside, hundreds of ships, dark and angular, filled the sky. They moved like a swarm, coordinated and precise. The humans on the colony stared in disbelief. What are they doing?" one worker whispered. "They're coming for me," Eli said simply. It seemed impossible. How could one human be the target of 500 warships? Eli didn't have time to ponder. He knew survival meant thinking fast, moving faster, and staying unpredictable. Humans had always been underestimated. That was their advantage. Eli's first move was simple: disappear. Using old tunnels beneath the colony, he activated hidden pathways that only he knew existed. Machines that seemed broken were suddenly functional. Doors opened where none existed. Lights flickered in patterns designed to confuse sensors. Above, the Xiforan fleet adjusted, scanning, analyzing. Every movement Eli made seemed random and chaotic, defying their algorithms. They had never faced a species like this. Their simulations had assumed efficiency, predictability. Humans were neither. Eli ducked into a cavern beneath the mining colony. Dust and rocks rained down as he passed through narrow passages, the faint glow of bioluminescent fungi lighting his path. He paused, listening. No footsteps, no hum of engines, nothing. He allowed himself a small smile. One human could survive if clever enough. But he knew this was only the beginning. Hours later, in the Xiphrin command ship, sensors picked up a strange pattern. One human, alone, had destroyed multiple automated drones and evaded capture repeatedly. The council members were growing impatient. "Impossible," one said. "This human should be dead." "That is why he is dangerous," said another. "Do not underestimate what you do not understand." Meanwhile, Eli moved from planet to planet, using simple tricks with advanced technology. He jammed signals, used reflective surfaces to confuse targeting systems, and even convinced a few minor alien factions that he was a ghost of some powerful human spirit. Rumors began to spread. Other aliens whispered about the human who could vanish at will. Back on Orvax 9, Lyra worked frantically. She knew Eli could not survive alone forever. She hacked into old communication satellites, sending messages of warning and coordinates to allies across nearby systems. Humans were few, but even a small network could make a difference. One night, under a sky filled with alien warships, Eli paused on a cliff overlooking a canyon. The wind whipped around him, and he could feel the immense weight of the galaxy watching. He was not a soldier, not a general, not even trained for war, but he had survived so far simply by being human. "I have to stay ahead," he muttered. "One step, one move, one trick at a time." In the distance, a single alien ship descended toward the canyon. Its sensors were sophisticated, its weapons advanced. But Eli was ready. He rigged an old mining drill to act as a decoy. As the alien ship fired, the drill exploded, sending sparks and dust into the air. Eli slipped away in the confusion, leaving behind a trail of illusion and fear. He didn't celebrate. Humans did not boast. They survived. That was enough. By the time the Xiphrin fleet realized what had happened, Eli was gone again. The human who should have been dead a dozen times over had vanished. Across the galaxy, whispers began. One human, alone, defying 500 warships. The legend had begun. And somewhere deep in the Xiphrin fleet, a new kind of respect was forming, a fear wrapped in awe. This was not just a human who could survive. This was a human who could change the way the galaxy saw an entire species. Eli did not know it yet. He only knew he had to keep moving. Every step was dangerous, every mistake could be his last. But humans had a way of turning impossible odds into opportunity. As he slipped into the shadows of another star system, Eli whispered to himself, "Let them come. I'm ready." And with that, the chase continued, not just a pursuit of a human, but the beginning of a galactic legend. Ilivaran drifted through the shadow of an asteroid belt, his small craft weaving between jagged rocks like a bird among trees. Above him, the blackness of space was broken only by the distant glimmer of alien warships. 500. He had counted them once, then again and again. They were relentless, vast, and precise, and yet he was still alive. "Humans are stubborn," he muttered to himself, fingers flying over the control panel. He tapped a sequence of commands that activated the craft's emergency stealth field, a fragile cloak that flickered but worked just enough to confuse enemy sensors. Every step he took now was a game of wits. One mistake, one missed calculation, and it could be the end. The Xiphorans did not understand humans. They were methodical, logical, and efficient. Humans were none of these things. Humans were unpredictable. Humans were clever. And that was Eli's weapon. The first wave of attacks came swiftly. Hundreds of drones swarmed through the asteroid belt, scanning, firing, and analyzing. Each one was destroyed, either by clever traps Eli had laid in the rocks or by his daring maneuvers. He used the environment like a painter uses a brush, hiding, striking, vanishing, leaving confusion in his wake. From orbit, the Xiphoran admirals watched, their long faces betraying frustration. "How can one human survive this?" one hissed. "It is impossible." "Impossibility is a human specialty," replied another, and the comment earned a thin, metallic laugh. Meanwhile, Eli maneuvered his craft toward a nearby gas giant. Its swirling storms offered cover, but navigating them was like threading a needle in a hurricane. Sensors failed, systems flickered, and the cold wind of space threatened to tear his ship apart. But Eli was not just relying on machines. He relied on his mind, his intuition, his ability to think like no algorithm could. He lured several Xiphoran ships into the planet's storms. Lightning arcs and magnetic turbulence disabled sensors. Some ships collided with each other in confusion. Others withdrew, sending signals of frustration back to the fleet. Eli smiled. "One down," he whispered, but the battle was far from over. The Xiphorans adapted quickly. They changed tactics, deploying faster ships and smarter drones. Eli knew he could not outrun them forever. Survival meant more than speed. It meant strategy. He set a trap in a small, abandoned mining station orbiting a dead moon. The station's defense systems were ancient, left over from an old human colony, but Eli repurposed them with improvised modifications. Automated turrets, decoy signals, and energy pulses turned the station into a fortress. When a squadron of Xiphoran ships approached, they were met with chaos. Lasers ricocheted off walls. Sensors gave false readings. Ships were disabled without a single human stepping outside. Eli watched from a safe distance, calm and focused. He was alone, but he was never helpless. Even as the aliens regrouped, rumors began to spread across nearby systems. Traders, explorers, and minor alien factions whispered about the human who survived 500 warships. "Some kind of spirit," said one trader nervously. "Impossible to kill, impossible to track." "Not a spirit," another replied. "A human, clever, terrifying." For Eli, the growing legend was irrelevant. Survival was all that mattered, yet he felt a strange pride. Humans were often underestimated. Other species assumed weakness. Eli had shattered that assumption. One human could not be ignored. Days turned into weeks. Eli moved from system to system, always one step ahead. He had learned the Xiphorans' patterns, studied their fleet, and found weaknesses no one else could see. They depended on efficiency, on coordination, on predictable logic. Eli was chaotic brilliance. One night, as he rested on a quiet space station orbiting a minor planet, he reviewed his options. Supplies were low. Systems were strained. The Xiphoran fleet was growing bolder. He needed allies. Humans were scattered and few, but he found them. Colonies across the sector, connected by whispers and old comm networks, began sending him resources, fuel, weapons, information. They didn't ask for heroics, they asked for hope. And Eli provided it, not because he sought glory, but because it was the human way: survive, adapt, and protect one's own. Then came the message, not from humans, but from a small alien faction. Their ship bore the same shimmer as the first device that had observed him on Orvax 9. "We can help you," the alien said, "but you must trust us." Eli stared at the message. Trust was a rare commodity in space, especially from species that had hunted humans for centuries. But he had little choice. Even cleverness had limits. He met them at a neutral point, a dead moon in a forgotten system. The aliens were cautious, sleek and cautious, yet there was something familiar in their caution: intelligence. Eli explained his plan: use the Xiphorans' arrogance against them, divide their fleet, and survive long enough to escape the hunting range. The aliens listened, impressed by his audacity. Humans were fragile physically, yes, but their minds were weapons. "You are remarkable," one alien said. "No other species would attempt this." "I am human," Eli replied simply. "That explains everything." With new allies and resources, Eli set his next trap. The Xiphoran fleet was advancing toward the star cluster of Draction 5, a field of unstable stars and radiation storms. Eli's plan was bold, almost suicidal, but it worked perfectly with humans' greatest strength: unpredictability. Ships entered the cluster expecting careful calculations. Instead, they faced random gravitational shifts, energy surges, and magnetic storms that Eli had prepared in advance. Several vessels collided or lost systems entirely. The fleet's efficiency crumbled. Chaos reigned. From the safety of a hidden station, Eli watched the results. Hundreds of warships had come for one human, hundreds had failed. And yet he did not celebrate. Eli knew the Xiphorans would adapt. They would learn. They would return stronger and smarter. But for now, humanity had shown its worth, its cunning, its resilience. The galaxy was beginning to notice. Other species whispered about the human who outsmarted 500 warships. Humans told stories of Eli's courage, using them as inspiration for colonies that had felt powerless. In the Xiphoran fleet, confusion turned to frustration, frustration into fear. Their simulations had failed, their strategies had failed, and one truth became clear: humans were not just a minor species. Humans were dangerous, unpredictable, clever. Eli drifted alone in space, surrounded by silence, yet he was never lonely. Every move, every decision, every clever trick had built something far larger than survival. It was legend. One night, aboard a small supply ship, Eli looked at the stars and whispered, almost to himself, "They sent 500 warships after me, and I'm still here. They don't understand humans yet. They will." A faint smile crossed his face. Tomorrow he would face them again. And tomorrow he would win again, because humans did not surrender. Humans did not follow rules. Humans survived. And the legend was only just beginning. The stars above the Draction 5 cluster burned like 1,000 watchful eyes. Eli Varen's small craft drifted silently among them, its sleek hull almost invisible against the void. Around him, the remnants of the Xiphoran fleet loomed, ships battered, systems damaged, yet still menacing. 500 warships had once chased him across the galaxy. Now only a fraction remained, but that did not make the threat smaller. Eli's mind worked faster than any machine. Every move, every calculation, every risk had to be perfect. This was no longer just survival. This was legend in the making. The galaxy had been watching. Other species, previously dismissive of humans, now whispered in fear and awe about the human who could survive the impossible. But Eli did not think of fame. He thought of one thing: winning today. He activated a series of devices he had prepared in advance. The Draction 5 cluster was rich in natural phenomena: energy storms, gravitational distortions, magnetic fields. Eli had modified old mining equipment, turning abandoned satellites, asteroids, and debris into weapons of cunning design. The Xiphorans had strength in numbers. He had strategy, speed, and unpredictability. The first wave of ships approached, their sensors sweeping the asteroid field like a net. They believed they had learned his patterns. They had adjusted, adapted, predicted. But humans were chaos incarnate. Eli had prepared a trap. He triggered an energy pulse from a hidden satellite. The blast disabled targeting systems of the nearest ships. Sensors went dark. Weapons misfired. Ships collided with asteroids, sparks flying as hulls cracked. From the shadows, Eli's craft darted forward, invisible, untouchable, a phantom in the storm. Inside the Xiphoran command ship, panic spread. "Impossible," shouted one admiral. "He cannot be here, and he cannot be alive." "He is more than alive," said another, voice cold but trembling. "He is a human. He thinks like none of us can." Meanwhile, Eli maneuvered toward a massive, unstable star on the edge of the cluster. Its gravity was deadly, its storms unpredictable. But he had calculated every possible movement. He would use the star as a weapon, a natural force to turn the Xiphorans' own power against them. He sent a signal to his allies, the small alien faction he had convinced to trust him. "Prepare the field," he instructed. "Let them come. Let them witness human ingenuity." The Xiforan fleet advanced, confident. Hundreds of warships, trained for conquest, prepared to strike. They were unaware that a single human had transformed the battlefield into a labyrinth of peril. Asteroids shifted, energy storms surged, debris moved like guided missiles, and gravitation pulled and pushed in ways no simulation could predict. Eli's craft weaved through the chaos, planting devices that would overload systems in the larger ships. A precise detonation here, a controlled collision there, and the fleet's formation began to crumble. Panic spread. Communication was lost. Discipline broke. One of the Xiforan admirals sent a message, trembling with rage and disbelief. "This human is impossible. He bends the laws of physics, the rules of war. He is a threat to all of us." Eli heard it through his comm receiver. He allowed himself a small, satisfied smile. He didn't need to respond. His actions spoke louder than words. The climax was near. Eli approached the heart of the fleet, a massive command ship, bristling with weaponry and shielded against nearly every known attack. He knew that destroying it outright was impossible, but defeating it did not require destruction. It required strategy, timing, and psychology. Using a combination of stealth, decoys, and precise energy pulses, Eli infiltrated the command ship systems. He did not board it physically. That would have been suicide. Instead, he hacked its network remotely, exploiting weaknesses only a human mind could find. Lights flickered inside the command ship, alarms blared, communications failed, weapons misfired. The fleet panicked. Ships turned on each other, collisions multiplied, and chaos reigned. The Xiforan admirals realized too late they had been outsmarted by one human. Not a soldier, not a genius, a human. Eli drifted in space, watching the result unfold. Hundreds of warships had come to capture him. Hundreds had failed. And the galaxy watched silently, amazed, terrified, inspired. But Eli was not done. He knew the Xiforans would retreat and regroup. They were relentless. He needed a message, a lesson that humans could not be underestimated. He activated a sequence of signal bursts, sending a coordinated message across the fleet and the wider galaxy. This is humanity. We are clever, unpredictable, and resilient. We survive, and we adapt. Do not underestimate us. The message was simple, clear, terrifying to some, inspiring to others. The Xiforan fleet retreated, but the damage had been done. Humans were no longer a minor species in the galaxy. They were respected, feared, and revered. Across star systems, other civilizations began to prepare differently, knowing that one human, or 1,000, could change everything. Eli drifted alone in his craft, watching the stars burn brightly against the dark void. He was exhausted, yes. He had pushed his mind and body beyond limits, but he had survived. And more importantly, he had changed the galaxy's perception of humanity forever. Stories spread across human colonies. Tales of Eli Varon, the human who survived 500 warships, inspired engineers, pilots, and explorers alike. Humans began to see themselves not as fragile or insignificant, but as capable of achieving the impossible. Eli had done more than survive. He had created a symbol, a spark that would ignite generations. In the Xiforan fleet, whispers spread as well. The humans, they are clever, dangerous. We cannot control them. We cannot predict them. Fear, respect, and awe had replaced arrogance. Eli had shifted the balance with nothing but his mind, his courage, and his indomitable spirit. Back on Orvax 9, Lyra watched news feeds and transmissions from across the galaxy. Humans celebrated cautiously, aware that the real danger, unknown threats, hostile species still waited. But hope had returned. One human had stood against impossible odds and survived. That was proof that humanity could endure, adapt, and thrive. Eli Varon, drifting silently in the void, allowed himself a rare smile. He had been alone, hunted by 500 warships, and yet he had not only survived, he had triumphed. The galaxy had witnessed it, and humans would never be underestimated again. He whispered to the stars. They sent 500 warships after one human, and they created a legend. One human, one species, and the galaxy will never forget. The stars twinkled back, silent witnesses to a story of courage, ingenuity, and the indomitable human spirit. Eli set a new course toward unknown worlds, unknown dangers, but he was not afraid. Humans survived. Humans adapted. Humans conquered, not with brute force, but with brilliance, daring, and courage. And somewhere deep in the galaxy, the legend of Eli Varon continued to grow. One human against 500 warships, and a galactic legend was born.